So you just installed Enlisted and you're met with the choice of which faction to play. There's tons of pros and cons of each faction, and we're going to be going over all of them right now in this video, and we're also going to be ranking them from 1 to 4 in terms of the best faction for new players. Now keep in mind, guys, that these rankings are not in any way set in stone, and they can change based on your own personal preferences and what you value from your time and your playstyle. So just because I'm saying that XY faction is the best faction, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best faction for you. So make sure you guys listen to all the different pros and cons. But without anything else, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out and I appreciate it. And let's jump into the video. Coming in at number 4 and last on our list is Japan. Now, don't get me wrong. Japan can be a good place to start for new players. Okay, it's only last on the list because it's, in my opinion, worse than the other ones. It has a small tech tree. It allows you to rapidly reach high-tier matches and unlock powerful weapons. There's a lot of great weapons for the Japanese. Interestingly enough, they actually have some of the best submachine guns in all of Enlisted, like the Type 100 or the Type 2A, or even the Tokyo Arsenal, which is arguably the best submachine gun in all of Enlisted. And all of these guns seriously outclass anything the Allies have. Rifles are also fantastic. The Type 99 Sniper is a great addition for anyone looking for long-range duels, which also work pretty well on the very open, long-range Pacific maps. But that's where we kind of end our benefits, okay? Japan has 2 major drawbacks. The first of which is that they're isolated. They only play matches in the Pacific, and they only play against the Allies, at least again at this time of this video. This leads to a pretty monotonous grind with very little variety in what you're seeing and what you're playing. The second is that their vehicles are pretty weak overall. The majority of their vehicles are lightly armed, lightly armored, and will get absolutely roasted by anything that's even sneezing in their general direction. Even their planes are not really that great. They often lack in serious cast capabilities, even though they are very good at air superiority. Now, enemy vehicles aren't typically going to be a problem for very long for Japan because they do have superpowered handheld anti-tank early in their tech tree, but it's still just a frustrating experience to not have capable vehicles to engage enemies with, and if you're the type of player who maybe is coming from War Thunder, or you just want to play in a tank, you're going to find it pretty lackluster when you're playing as the Japanese. They're definitely a fun faction. They're unique in the fact that they can buy swords and lunge mines, and they're very thematic to be able to play as. After all, bonsai charging across the map is a lot more satisfying as the Japanese than it is as, say, the Germans or something like that. But just at the end of the day, they just fall pretty flat. Very little variety, subpar vehicles makes the grind to top tier pretty boring, even if it is kind of the shortest of all the different factions. Third on our list is the Western Allies. Early on in the tech tree, the Allies are a fairly weak faction, having arguably the weakest tier 2 of any faction in Enlisted. Early Allied players are going to have to make do with the Grease Gun, the Stuart light tanks, and bolt-action rifles that are typically outclassed by their German counterparts, with the exception of the Lee Enfield. But it's not all bad. The Allies have a lot of solid tools thanks to a Mr. John Browning, such as the BAR LMG, the Browning Auto 5 shotgun, and of course the M2 Browning 50 cal, which is strapped to the top and bottom of many vehicles in the game. Many Allied vehicles also have stabilizers on their guns, meaning they're very accurate on the move, making them perfect for flanking out enemy vehicles and supporting your team. Sherman tanks are excellent in this role, since their high explosive shell is absolutely devastating, and they can even fire smoke shells to provide concealment for friendlies. However, the Sherman tank kind of falls very short when it comes to combating enemy vehicles, and the second you run into a German big cat like the Tiger or the Panther, you're going to have a bad time. Now, on the other hand, or in the air I suppose, if you're looking to be a pilot, the Allies are the absolute best faction in the game for you. They almost always have air superiority because their fighter planes like the P-38 and P-51 are some of the best in the game. Even their cast planes like the P-47 is technically still a fighter and can dogfight most German planes. All in all, the Allies have a fairly average set of infantry equipment with very little weapons of note, at least when compared to the other factions in the game. However, what they lack here, they make up for lots thanks to their powerful supporting vehicles like the P-38 or the Sherman. If you're looking to play a faction that focuses heavily on combined arms and teamwork, then the Allies are a great choice for you. But always keep in mind, you're queuing a game with a bunch of random people, and that's why we're putting the Allies at number 3 on our list. My second best faction for new players is the Axis, headed off by the Germans. Germany in Enlisted has tons of toys to play with, and an answer to just about anything. Early in the tech tree, the tanks such as the Panzer IV-E will turn infantry to mist and also be able to duel enemy tanks just as well, and some machine guns like the MP40 are controllable and easy to use weapons. It's also hard to beat the German rifles. The Mannlicher and Kar-98 are both incredibly satisfying and powerful weapons in the hands of an accurate marksman. Planes like the FW, Bf-109, and Romanian IAC will also keep the early war skies clear, while your Stukas are able to drop hundreds of kilograms worth of bombs onto your enemies' heads. Germany is also a great faction to play if you want variety, since they have the most maps and theaters that they fight in by far. They're only missing out on the Pacific campaign. Transitioning to late game, you'll find your tank advantage growing endlessly and ending up with the German big cats, like the Tiger, the Panther, and of course, the mighty King Tiger. These vehicles are going to absolutely bulldoze through anything your enemy have, but are still very, very vulnerable to enemy planes, since German late war fighters are typically very outclassed, especially by the Allies. Finally, late war German infantry has access to the powerful STG-44 and FG-42s, which are arguably the best in-slot weapons for their respective classes. At the end of the day, Germany is a great faction to play if you enjoy vehicles and want to play in big, hulking tanks with massive cannons. But always be aware of the serious drawbacks the faction has, namely its lack of good late war air power. And coming in at number 1, the Soviets, comrades, if you haven't guessed it. The Soviets are obscenely powerful and Enlisted, especially at lower battle ratings, and it only gets better as it goes on. Weapons like the PPS-43 submachine gun give incredible firepower early game, while the Mosin rifles, capped off with the Winchester, give incredible mid-range damage performance, where they'll be able to take out even players with Vitality perk that gives increased health in just a single shot. Their tanks are also very strong, since many of the low-tier Soviet tanks are armed with the powerful 45mm cannon, which gives both good firepower against any German tank, as well as great anti-infantry capabilities with the T-28E. They're not slouches in the air either. Their fighter planes like the Yak-1 are powerhouses in the air, and they're able to dogfight with the best of the best German fighters. And their heavy attack planes like the IL-2 will absolutely smash enemy tanks anywhere they're at. Now, where the Soviets most lack, especially in the early game, is their machine guns, where they only have access to the Madsen in the early game and transition into the DP-27. And while these aren't the worst weapons in the game, they're far from powerful. They also lack in the handheld anti-tank department as well, since the PTRS-41, while being a decent weapon, can be a tough thing to get used to and to use effectively when you're starting out new. But the Soviets scale so well into the late game, they unlock weapons like the AVT-40, the RD-44, the PPSH, the AS-44, the list goes on, and they even get heavy tanks like the IS-2. All in all, the Soviets have an answer for just about anything, and not only is it an answer, it's arguably better than whatever their opponents have. If you're looking to hit the ground running when starting Enlisted, joining the Red Army, or I suppose being conscripted into the Red Army, is the best choice in my opinion. Just make sure to not get on the bad side of the NKVD. And there you have it, guys. That is my list of the best factions for new players in Enlisted. Those veterans out there, leave a tip down below. Let players know what you guys think about my list. Let them know what weapons and vehicles they should be prioritizing, and give them some tips and tricks so we can all get better at the game. Those new players out there, if you guys found this guide helpful, check out my channel for more Enlisted guides, and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I do appreciate that, and it helps me out as always. But without anything else, thank you again for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.